If you enjoyed this video, please consider subscribing to the channel, cause if you do, Valve might not cancel me for making so many beta videos. In your travels to the wasteland, Dr. Freeman, you'll come across a monstrosity where the air is unbreathable and the smog is blinding. Please, Dr. Freeman, destroy it when you come across it. Destroy the air exchange. Starting from the 2001 map pack, we have AirX Start Concept. And right off the bat, the lighting in the map sets the tone for what would follow throughout the rest of the Air Exchange maps. The bluish shadows with the orange tint from the side gives this place such a somber feeling. And like some of the other beta maps, the sense of scale is magnified more than what we've seen in the retail game. This was supposedly a concept of how the start of this chapter should look like, but keep following these designs as they will keep on changing throughout. AirX Start. A little different from the concept we saw. We start way outside the facility trying to get in through the tunnels. You see, the air exchange was a facility whose purpose was to replace the air with toxic murky gases. That would explain the gas mask element in the earlier storylines. And to say that this facility is gigantic would be an understatement. I like this section, with the long fall below. Without any enemies or characters around, it feels so ominous to be here. In fact, throughout all of these maps, as if it's a fully working facility that was left abandoned. Of course, there are some enemies in some of the maps. Additionally, I like the brutalist architecture. It adds in a personality to the facility's overall design. AirX01. Amazing skybox. If you've been watching my beta videos, you know I'm a sucker for the skyboxes. There's also the reactor visible, way back there in the distance. And again, the orange highlights all over the map add a sense of gloomy danger rather than a sense of warmth that it should. So apparently, Gordon would have traveled from the depot on a train that would crash somewhere close to the air exchange. Then he would met Alex and her alien pet, Skitch. Inside the facility, I don't know why, but I kept getting reminded of Half-Life 1. I don't know if that's just me, but that's how I felt going through these places. It felt like this was a natural evolution in Valve's mapping compared to Half-Life 1's maps. We neutralize a couple of stalkers and proceed forward. I really like the textures used here, metallic and industrialist in design. Then we go outside again for a brief moment before heading back in to the second building. I took a moment to appreciate the lighting here. It looked great. Inside the next building, there are a bunch of stalkers and a combine soldier. There were also these platforming areas where you had to dodge the electricity currents going up and down the walls. At the end of this map, we approach a lift. AirX02. This starts off from this vertical area where you have to fight off the stalkers and the combine. To be honest, While I appreciate this chapter and all its levels, I can't help but feel it was a little too long. Just a tad bit long, I guess. I can understand why they cut this chapter and replaced it with Nova Prospect. After clearing out that building, we delved deep into the mechanical industrial heart of the facility. You can see the air exchange tower here too. In fact, that's where we have to go. I really liked this area. It had the same feelings and atmosphere as the Beta City 17, dark and gritty. I loved the white lights on the walls and the natural orange light spewing on top of the tall structures. We make our way to the elevator that will take us to the top. Here it was planned that Gordon would have a fight with a Combine gunship, and once he destroys that gunship, Gordon would jump off the tower into the chemical solvents below. Of course, the gunship fight wasn't programmed in the beta map, so that won't happen here. AirX-0203 Remnants. So the early 2001 map pack ends at AirX-02. Seemingly the team at Valve was working on this chapter in early 2001, so it wasn't completed by this point. Before we move on to the late 2001 and early 2002 maps, let's take a look at some extra maps from early 2001. At first I was confused as to what this map was supposed to be. There were a bunch of Odells standing here, most likely as placeholders. Then this whole area felt weird. It didn't have a start or a finish. Most likely they were blocking out or making concept maps of what happens after the gunship fight in AirX-02. Of course, keep these rough 2001 maps in mind, cause when we look at the 2002 maps, you'll see how some of these became proper fully mapped areas that connect with the AirX-01 and AirX-02 maps. AirX-04 Remnants. Another rough map. Most likely it was made to sketch out the layout of the map and how it should play out. It is in a very rough state here. Also keep in mind these flying fans jumps. They return in the 2002 maps as well, but with a different design. You'll understand shortly. Before moving on to the next map, I no-clipped around to see what was going on. Turns out there was a large area that was inaccessible without no-clipping. Like I said, these would evolve into the 2002 quote-unquote final maps. AirX Rough Puzzles 1 to 6 is a collection of, well, puzzles, if you can call them that. They were more of a platforming challenge than anything else. Just dodge the electricity shooting out of the walls or the electric currents flowing up and down the walls. Puzzle 1 had both of these. Apparently this was also the first map created for the Air Exchange chapter before any of the other maps I just showed you. Puzzle 2 was mostly those fan jumping puzzles. Just position yourself right and jump to the next platform. These puzzles play a big part in the final 2002 maps. I was surprised to see them implemented in somewhat a proper condition. Puzzle 3 was kind of weird. I'm not sure what the whole concept was, but you can call this huge platform to you and jump on it to reach a room. Maybe they were working on finalizing this puzzle concept. Or maybe they just discarded it. Puzzle 4 had a huge fan like in Half-Life 1. You can turn it on and reach the area on the top, and that's pretty much it. Puzzle 5 was again that dodging puzzle, where you had to dodge the electric bolts coming out of the walls. And finally, Puzzle 6 was a wall climbing, electricity dodging puzzle. And that's it. ARX Start 01. Now we're in the late 2001, early 2002 map pack. As you can see, the start of the map was drastically changed from what it was before. The lower area reminded me of that 2001 concept we saw earlier. I love this upgrade. It makes the whole map look more menacing, more ominous, as if Gordon was delving deep into the belly of the beast. The Air Exchange just might be one of my favorite beta chapters, apart from the beta City 17 one. Absolutely amazing. It sort of captures how high the ambitions were, how huge Half-Life 2 could have been. A little fact you might already know is that originally Half-Life 2 was going to take place over the course of 4 days, but after cutting chapters like this one, it was reduced to 3 days. Day 3 in the beta would have ended at the end of the Air Exchange, and Day 4 would have began at the Borealis chapter. Then there's the element of the wasteland. The coarse, dry land textures with the rock textures signify how the wasteland would have been like. Of course, there are other maps that show the wasteland more prominently, but I digress. Slipping in through the vents, you would end up in ARX Start 02. It's a familiar place, quite similar to the earlier 2001 version, with little adjustments and improvements done on top of it. You can also see Odell here, who was most likely a placeholder for Alex. Another thing I forgot to mention is Captain Vance and his army of conscripts. You see, Vance and his men would have been in charge of looking after this place. Looking from the outside, Vance would be working under the Combine, but in actuality, he would be working undercover with the Resistance and his daughter, Alex. There are many story variations, but one of them states that when Gordon would attack this base, the conscript would rebel against their Combine overlords, and at the end of this chapter, the citizens in City 17 would know that it is time to start the revolution. The 2002 ARX-01 is similar to the 2001 version. Of course, some adjustments were made. For example, you would enter into the facility from a different place, and the 2 interior spaces filled with stalkers were removed. Most of the battles took place outside in this version. We'd go through this little tunnel to reach the other side of the fence, which would lead us further into this industrial complex. ARX-02 would have us fighting Combine soldiers, stalkers, and wasteland scanners. Again, this is mostly the same as the 2001 version, it just has more polish to it and minor changes made to it, most likely to streamline how the map flows throughout the gameplay. The new additions in this map pack start from ARX-03, which we will look at real soon. We get into the lift and go atop the Air Exchange Tower. ARX-03 starts at the top of the tower. This is where we would have fought that gunship. Again, it wasn't programmed yet, so it won't occur here. This whole area is new. Gordon would have to jump into the chemical pool below to continue further into the facility. The thing is, Gordon and Alex's objective here was to disable this behemoth of a facility, stop it from corrupting the air. This whole area looks like a boss battle arena to me. Maybe the gunship would have come back to fight us once we get down here. Who knows? But it is designed very nicely. Really looks like a proper industrial complex. The only thing missing was the Combine influence over the whole place. From a glance, it just looks like a normal industrial complex. But of course, it might be possible this was a facility used for something else before the Combine took over. AirX-04 has this huge central area of the facility with tall buildings and structures. This is where I felt how different things were in this design. Everything is so tall in proportion, it overshadows the player, makes them feel small. I really enjoyed this area. We proceed to a building which takes us to what seems like a control center or a command center. There's also a conscript here. Maybe this is the place where we would have met Captain Vance and he would have shared plans on how to destroy this place. Moving forward, we finally locate an underground area which would lead us into the core of the facility. AirX-05 is what I believe as the starting area of the core. It almost feels like we're in some sort of endgame area. What I mean is, playing AirX-05 and 06 made me feel like this is the last level of a game, where everything peaks, we defeat the final boss and the game ends. That's how much ambitious it felt to me. I would imagine how overblown the original Citadel levels would have been if this sort of ambitions remained in the development team. Also, there's the same fan jumping thing here as well. Instead of a texture, it's now a proper object that you can use to jump and fly to a higher platform. It felt so unreal playing through these maps, and it's such a shame because these maps were fully prototyped and only needed to be finalized. Unfortunately, the whole chapter was cut. Using a fan, we jump to the next platform and make our way further into the core area. AirX-06 is the final map of the Air Exchange chapter, or at least I think it would have been the last one. Here you can see that electricity dodging puzzle we saw earlier. These show up along with those electric bolt dodging puzzles. Here you can see the dodging areas I was talking about. I absolutely love that bluish cold light that glows from down below. It gives a personality to the whole place, and the sense of vastness, the verticality, it made it even more menacing in appearance. I think there were supposed to be fans here, but they weren't added yet, so I no clip to where I presumed we were supposed to go. And here I saw the pistons, and immediately I remembered the concept art pieces. Imagine these moving all the while you're getting shot at by the Combine. It would have been such an intense level. Lastly, we enter into the core, climb up the walls, and disable this facility. And after this, the Borealis chapter would have started. Now I'm not sure how that transition would have taken place, how you would have gone from the air exchange to the Borealis. The wasteland don't seem to be anywhere near the Arctic or the sea. Another beta mystery, I guess. But before I end the video, let me show you two more maps. Test Room Light Air X01. From the name we can deduce that this map was just created to test out the lights, maybe create a template of sorts for the map designers. Maybe they would use this map to see what kind of lighting should be used in the air exchange maps. It's a simple one, and it nails the lighting part. Temp 3 was the last air exchange map made. It is dated February 2002. Most likely this whole chapter was cut around the point this map was made. I'm not sure what the concept or idea of this map was. It looks a little different, has some extra things in it, even has trees and foliage. Looks nice though, almost feels like a finished map. And there you have it. That was the air exchange maps from the Half-Life 2 beta. Some of my older viewers might remember that I actually made a video on this chapter before, but after looking at that video again, I noticed I missed a lot of the maps, and the whole video wasn't that great either, so that's why I made this one. I hope you enjoyed this video, and thank you for watching.